In these last 2 weeks of the Church's year, before we begin a new liturgical year in Advent, the Church asks us to think about the four last things of death, judgment, heaven, and hell. Next week, the Feast of Christ the King, we explore that we have themes of judgment, heaven, and hell, which leaves us with this week, the 33rd Sunday, when the scriptures point us towards the last things. We hear the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem being foretold by Jesus. We hear the prophecy of the coming of the day of the Lord. And these climactic, grand, finalizing events become metaphors for us of our own impending death as well. So today I'd like us to look at death, and particularly how to have a good death. And to do that, I want to tell you about my own mother and how she died. My mum, in her 80s, developed dementia, and it didn't take away all her personality or her memory, but it did take away her mobility. So she quickly became bedbound and chairbound and needed nursing care in an aged care home. And they took very good care of her. But my mum's immobility combined with already very poor circulation in her legs meant that she had a toe amputated, and then there was a risk of more toes being amputated, and she developed terrible pressure wounds, ulcers on the back of her heels, which whether you're lying down in a bed or whether you're sitting in a tub chair with your legs elevated, you still have your pressure on the back of your feet. And so these awful wounds were just never healing and they were always painful. And the nursing staff were wonderful. They tried everything with different medications and ointments, and there was wound care specialists who came and did all kinds of things for her, but nothing really worked. And so many months, probably more than a year in, I was visiting my mum, and the doctor came through that day. I said, "Doctor, my mum's in pain here, isn't she?" And he said, "Yes, yes, Helen is." I said, "And these wounds, are they ever going to heal?" And he said, "Realistically, no, we've tried everything we can. Nothing's going to make an improvement." So I said, "Doctor, can we now then just move to giving her pain relief only, not doing any other intervention?" And he leaned over to my mum and said, "Helen, is this what you want?" And in a moment of lucidity, she was able to say yes. So we called the palliative care conference with the doctor, nursing staff, and rest of my family. And we agreed that mum would then go on a morphine pump. And so my mum had that morphine pump, which was a wonderful thing. It took away so much of her pain. The normal progression with a morphine pump is that because you develop a tolerance to the morphine, you have to gradually increase the dosage. That makes the person more and more drowsy. They sleep more and more of the day away. And in the end, it suppresses your breathing and actually usually becomes the cause of death. So my mum had a morphine pump for about a month. And I remember visiting her, and on a couple of days before she died, I went in and visited her, and she was unresponsive, conscious, sleeping very peacefully. And I reached out and sort of took her hand from under the bed covers and held her hand that was soft and warm and just said, "Mum, well done. You've almost made it. You're almost at the place you've been trying to get to for your whole life." She nearly made it to heaven. And when she did die a couple of days later, my sister said that she simply floated off to heaven on a cloud of morphine. It was a beautiful, gentle death, well prepared for, because my mum neither feared death nor felt the need to cling to every single moment of life with all medical measures to extend her life. She was very happy to enter palliative care, which ended up in a very peaceful, gentle death for her. This was December 2019, and just a month later, COVID broke out, and a month later, all nursing homes went into lockdown from which would take 2 and 3 years to recover from. And so I'm so grateful to God that my mum died just before that. She didn't have to endure that awful isolation that so many people in nursing homes did go through in those recent years. When I tell that story, though, people sometimes say, "But isn't that euthanasia? Isn't that what we as a church say no to?" And they are half right. We absolutely as a church say no to euthanasia, to what we now call voluntary assisted dying. But what my mum had was not that. My mum had palliative care, which is simply the measures of giving comfort care for a person as long as they may need at the end of their life, which will often include, but doesn't always have to include, that morphine pump to give constant and increasing pain relief. So that is something we as a church, we accept and we endorse and very much approve of because it tremendously adds to a person's quality of life in their final weeks and months. But euthanasia is something different, which we don't accept, because euthanasia is the deliberate taking of life much earlier. It is saying that I don't want to suffer in the future, so I'd like to die now before I have to go through suffering. And the problem is, although that seems like a very good idea, it's a very easy thing to sell to people to say, well, people shouldn't suffer, so why should we not have this? In New South Wales, voluntary assisted dying is only new, so we have very, very tight guardrails around it. You have to have an illness which will naturally lead to death within 6 or 12 months. You have to have 2 or 3 doctors sign off and approve this. But the thing is, those numbers are arbitrary. Why 6 months? Why 12 months? Why not 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Why not chronic illness as well as terminal illness? Why not mental illness as well as physical illness? Once we decide that euthanasia is a good idea, there's no real reason to for any particular point of protection to be in place. And we've seen in countries like the Netherlands, where it's been in place for much, much longer, that all the restrictions fall away and it becomes more and more commonplace for more and more people. And again, that might not seem like a bad thing to many people. But the problem is, once we embed in society the idea that you shouldn't suffer, and if you're suffering, you should take your own life and end your own life. What's to stop a depressed teenager saying the same thing? This gives rise to a suicide culture for anybody who feels like life is too hard right now, even though there may well be hope for their future. But euthanasia takes away that hope. It is the denial of all hope. So euthanasia is legal in New South Wales, but it is something which we as a church still stand against. I was recently called to a hospital in fact, for the first time I ever encountered euthanasia. I said to the woman, what would you like help with? She said, I'm having voluntary assisted dying tomorrow, so I'd like to have the last rites. And that was difficult because I had to say to her, look, I can't, we don't support this. So I can give you the anointing of the sick for the sickness and suffering you have right now. But I can't give you the commendation of the dying for your death tomorrow because you don't have to die tomorrow. I don't want you to die tomorrow. But indeed, I presume she did go ahead with it. So I simply prayed with her, anointed her for the sickness she had then. There wasn't an opportunity to have a longer conversation, sadly, so I had to walk away and leave her to it. But this is becoming more and more common. So we as a church need to be really clear, I guess, about what it is we allow and accept and endorse and what we don't. We absolutely support, we absolutely do support good palliative care measures. And we need to make sure that we both advocate for that publicly. A friend of our parish, MLC Susan Carter, is pushing very hard to ensure that the palliative care is not underfunded and is made available for all people, because there are pushes to remove that. Voluntary assisted dying is much cheaper than long-term palliative care for people. So there's an economic reason governments might say, let's do that instead. But we want to say no. Every life is precious. Even a life in pain is precious. As long as we can manage that pain to some extent, there is still goodness, because a person at the end of their life may well make peace with God, peace with themselves, peace with their family. It can be a beautiful and holy time. That's what we mean by holy death. Prepare ourselves well to die. Prepare ourselves to make peace with the life we've lived, with all those we love and have been loved by, and prepare ourselves to enter into heaven, ready to see the Lord face to face. This is the opportunity which good palliative care affords us, so we should always seek that out. And so, if possible, we need to actually make those decisions early on. Think about what we would wish when the time comes and have those conversations with our family. We may well be in a position to be the enduring guardian or the carer for a spouse or a parent. And we may need to make those decisions with or even for them at some stage. Think about it, pray about it, talk with those people now to make a good decision to help people we love to indeed have a good death.